Welcome back again. This is Ispissus here, back inside the ancient grove, here to talk to you today about the state of Elyria. It's been almost 2 weeks since the state of Elyria post was dropped by Caspian on the Chronicles of Elyria website. And we're just going to review back at the things that have been discussed and the post itself from, what is now way back when. Most of you, if you've been keeping your ear to the ground, if you've been up to date on all of the Soulbound Studio information releases, have probably heard some breakdowns of the state of Elyria at this point. You've seen the memes on the website. You've listened to the impending domain and settlement selection announcement that was released as part of this newsletter, this update. And we're gonna go through quickly and talk about, hey, what did we pick out? What did the developers, did they give us any new information? Did they tell us anything that we didn't know before? Did they change anything that we'd already assumed or we'd already felt like we knew? And we'll talk about what is the state of Elyria and what is the state of the game at this time. Once again, we're here in the Ancient Grove, the channel inside the Conclave of Aratar Discord. So if you're an Aratarian and wish to have your voice be heard, have your voice be heard, have your opinion be known. If you want to pop in and talk about the state of Elyria, the idea of Chronicles of Elyria, and how you feel about the development process, or if you're excited, disappointed, happy, sad, ambivalent to these releases and the information that we're getting from the studio, do pop in and let's talk about it. Let's hear what you have to say. Let's understand what the community's feeling as we reach another milestone in the development of the game. They do the state of Elyria just like we do the State of the Union as a news, as an article, an information media to say, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. This is what we're working on next, and this is what you can expect coming up. Um, so let's jump right into it here. Do 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 do. So Caspian starting out with his general overview, and he's saying, hey, this is the things that we've done over the last year. Back in October 2018, seems like just a month ago, they released version 0.5.0. When we were neck deep in map voting server selection, they did the Lost Vault event and then took their vacation. Worked for a month and then they rest. As most of us do, as most of us deserve to. And so we go on, and they've got some pre-Elyria environment pictures, and if you check out the Soulbound Studios site, if you check out the Chronicles of Elyria website, there's much more pictures where these came from. Now these are pre-alpha pictures. These are pictures that we have access to. The developers have given us access to. Using some very basic visual graphics. Not end state of the game. This isn't what it looks like when you log in come release day. This isn't even what you look like when you log in come beta phase. But this is what they're working with as they develop, as they figure out the mechanics and the objects and the textures that they will end up using. This is what we've got right now, which I've got to say, if I was just looking at a game, with this sort of texture, with this sort of object textures, with these sort of graphics, and I'm thinking, medium fantasy kind of thing, I could get into this. I could get into a game that looks like this polygon art style, and really feel it. But we've come to expect more. We'll see more, and I as we go down, we'll see some more pictures. But this is wetlands in the pre-Elyria client, and I've got to say, looks pretty good moving forward. There'll be some major focuses they're talking about here, and in terms of messaging and communications, and they look to bridge the gap between supporters and future gamers in the studio. storm is about to break. So they go into the state of Elyria and they talk about a business model, and they talk about the growth of the studio. It looks like they went into a new building and they've invested a little capital in that building to make it look nice, to make it acceptable, make it start really looking like a studio that we would expect for a game like Chronicles of Elyria. And after it releases, the title and something professional, something good, something that if we were to go visit their offices, we walk in and we say, these guys got their stuff together. They're really working on the things that they need to, and they're able to perform at a level that we're confident we're happy at least at face value. It's hard to tell, and you don't judge a book by its cover, but a lot of times in the development world and in reality, that is what happens. A potential new hire, and which is what they talk about next, may be turned away from a studio. You walk into your job site, first day, looks like that. It's not to say it's a good company. It's not to say it's a bad company, but it maybe plays into the perceptions that these new hires, these employees, these investors have about the company. And so I think with a new paint job and a little bit of information, people when they go into work, they can say, hey, you know what? I feel like we're doing things. I feel like we're applying ourselves. I don't work in a shithole. I don't work in a place that is bad. I don't work in a place that doesn't care about itself. A little bit of self-love, I think, for this company is very good. Um, Anyway, so sounds like they've got some new hires, some new people coming in. That's always great to see from a design studio. Some blood coming in so that if people leave, if people have emergencies, whether they're individual or family emergencies, and they need to make a life change, that the studio doesn't necessarily become negatively impacted because of it. They're able to then weather the storms that come with any design, any life event that could occur. And so, God forbid something happens to a technical designer. Now they've got Steven, and Steven will be sounds like a very talented junior technical designer. Oh, sorry, senior technical designer. And if something were to happen to Steven after Jasmine, the junior technical designer's been there for a while, maybe she's able to step into those shoes, or at least help alleviate some of those stresses that'll cause to the business. So, and now they're getting into, the state of the game. Where are we at in Chronicles of Elyria? What do we expect to see? Where is that going to go to? And how does that how is that portrayed to us, the community, the people who are supporting this game financially with our much loved time and energy? And so they get into that, and I think that's really important from a game studio perspective. They say, you guys are deserving of hearing this information, and so we're going to tell you a little bit of it. They can't, of course, go into too much detail. We could harass them for the specific coding that they're using inside their game engine, how the color that they're making each of their models, the meshes that they're creating for the movement. And they could ask these questions. So we could get those answers if they were willing to give them, but really, are they things that we value? I don't particularly think so. But so they're talking first about their method of success, their software development plan. How are they going to get from where they are now, or where the idea was 15 years ago when Caspian thought Elyria, that's going to be a thing, and get to the finished product. And so they go in and they were talking about what are the ideas for success, and what are the ideas that the studio is trying to maintain as they come to the development, which I think is very important, and is important more so than we like to give it credit for. It's important that studios make their design goals. If I was an investor, if I was an individual who was dedicating a lot of money into Chronicles of Elyria, and my financial success in part was dependent on it. You want to see that you meet those deadlines that you set out. You want to see that the game gets released on time. You want to see that you're going to start having the cash inflow, because a lot of times, at least in today's development day and age, you don't have to necessarily worry about having it perfect the first time. Use a game like Atlas as an example. Were there issues at launch? Oh, hell yeah. Did they make money in those first 3 months? Oh, you bet yourself, you know. They released semi-polished turd, and some people didn't like it, some people did like it, but they got their cash, and they were able to then develop it further. And after the server wipe that is either just happened or is about to happen in a few months, you know, they'll have a better game, a more polished game. They've developed the money required to go to the next step. And hopefully, you know, and this is just for Atlas, not necessarily for Elyria. Hopefully, games that do that, they release prematurely in order to grab money to fund the development of the game, to maintain the development of the game. They do that in such a way that gives you a finished product that's acceptable to a community, to a gamer base. Um, I don't expect Chronicles of Elyria to follow the same business model that Atlas has, and we've talked about that previously on the Ancient Grove. What is the difference? Why is the early access, when games go to early access? What does that mean, and what are the expectations that as gamers we really need to assume and maintain in order to be successful in those worlds, but or at least to enjoy the titles as they're released. Um, so they're talking about that. They're talking about their method of success. They're talking about the way that they get to doing things, and this goes back to what we were talking about a second ago. You know, the idea of creating this cheaper environment, this pre-Elyria low graphics texturing to be able to work on different layers of a game before they release the main title or even the beta to it. Um, so they've set up this client so they can go back between the client, the server, the objects and textures and meshes inside the client, and as they're communicated through the server, and they can iterate very quickly. They want to be able to iterate on those independently of one another, and to be able to say, I'm doing a little bit of work here independently of the work here on the server, and when we need to test those together, we can at any point. And that speeds up the design process, because suddenly you're not hamstringed by the development of the server in order to practice or develop your client, or confirm that the client isn't going to create bugs or fix the bugs that the client does create. So, you know, they're going down and they're saying development of early test client was the core, that to be able to do the quick iteration strategy. And now that, you know, those things are being worked on and are more or less done, we're going on to those main ideas: the pre-alpha, the alpha 1, the alpha 2, the beta 1, the beta 2. And, you know, what do those mean, and how do those play into the success of the game, which is really interesting. And you know, we'll get into what alpha 1, beta 1, alpha 2, beta 2 mean, and cover them more as we get closer to those release dates. Anyway, currently it's, you know, we're in pre-alpha phase of development. In the deliverables they're doing, you know, they want to make sure that they can deliver a client and a server that allows Alpha 1 backers to get in and play some of the Alpha 1 features and help develop those mechanics, those features for the studio. So, and they gave us a list. Here are the features that they're thinking about, the things that they're focusing now on as a studio in terms of the Alpha 1 release. Access restriction. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, what's ours is ours. How does that work? How do you stop people from stealing things that are yours without using the stealing mechanic in the game? How do you make sure that the town that I own or am the mayor of, you know, only mayor-like people can go into mayor-like areas? Or is that something that they want to decide? How do you make sure that the stockpile of gold that I keep in the safe buried under my bed takes some effort to get into? And it's not that you can or cannot access areas. It's not like they've intended to create a game where there is a black box around what is yours and nobody can access that. But they want to make sure that those access restrictions, the theory behind them, I think are sound and important. Access restriction could also mean, and I'm spitballing here because I've got a word, and that could mean a number of different things to a number of different areas. What we were talking about in terms of access restriction in game as a mechanic, this could be access restriction for our client security, you know, server security. How do we stop people from, you know, say Lizard Squad, DDSing a server and getting some backdoor access because of those sort of actions. So that could be access restriction. Going on artificial intelligence, we have this idea of NPCs. How do NPCs behave? Is this the wow, sit there in one spot, follow a predefined um, path, say a predefined series of statements? Job's done. Job's done. You know, um, what does that look like? What is artificial intelligence, and how does that artificial intelligence play into OPC scripts? Because NPC scripts and OPC scripts have the potential, are expected to look very similar, albeit with the OPC scripts, the offline player character scripts, having some degree of customization for what you need them to do. So there's this degree of artificial intelligence, and they have to figure out how that's going to work and how that's going to look and how do you make that engaging, because you want those NPC characters, those OPC scripts, to feel like active characters in the game that you play. You don't want them to be too much of a pushover. You slaughter them by the thousands and it means nothing. You don't want them to be meaningless, repetitive drones that say the same things, do the same things, and whatnot. They're part of a dynamic background that creates that environment that the game sits in. Then, of course, going on to character creation, combat, and crafting, those three C's. I've left out contracts because we'll talk about that next. But character creation, combat, and crafting, what does that look like? What does the interface look like for character creation? What are the things we're allowed to do? And we got to see some of that in the video for character creation as they go through the different tribes, different body types, those Sims or Skyrim-like sliders that you can create something that's an individual to you, as a gamer, you're able to make it special, make it unique. Combat, crafting, those are the two other C's that we said, and those are, I hope, clear. Like when we talk about combat, when we talk about crafting, what do those look like? What do those mechanics look like? How does that change things? Is combat a series of 5 different options or 4 different options that you can choose and combine them together to make unique combat patterns? Is this like a For Honor system where there is a defined combat mechanic, combat environment, and you have to perform inside that, or is it more dynamic? Is it something a little bit more like Skyrim or Fallout or gosh, I keep thinking PlanetSide. Something that you're given a knife, you're given a sword, you're given a bow, and you can do whatever the hell you want to do there, and you're not limited to an angle here, an angle there. And there's pros and cons to both of those, but the same way goes to crafting. What does a crafting system look like? How do you learn new craft recipes? How do you discover new crafting abilities? How much variation, how much ability is there for different items that you craft to be unique? And I think that's going to be really interesting seeing that run out. And of course, let's go back to contracts there. Contracts, how do contracts work inside the Elyrian system? They're going to develop and define that a little bit more before they release that system to us for us to help them weed out any flaws, any issues, any holes in the logic that have been created inside that. A contract, of course, being a paper, an agreement that you sign between player characters and NPC characters to say, I will do this in exchange for that, or I agree to this, and whatnot. Just like any other legal document, it's the idea of quests, it's the idea of trade, it's the idea of responsibility and of response. So it'll be really interesting to see what the contract system looks like, how that plays into things, and how that plays into some of the more deviant like skills and mechanics. Can I forge a contract? What will that do? Those are some things that they'll think about. They've got the idea of dynamic environments. Things change. We've seen the gifts for the snow to summer transitions inside the gameplay. Check it out. It's on the media file at chroniclesofelyria.com. We've seen the way that things can move, trees can fall, interactions with the environment, lighting torches and stuff like that. Those are all public videos or public gifts inside the environment. What does that look like? How do those environments change over time, whether they're with the seasons, whether they're with the crop, sowing, growing, being harvested? Can you destroy buildings? Is it destructive environments? We have that assumption, yes, because of the way that the studio has said things, has indicated things are going to be programmed and what they want to be able to do inside there. Well, how are they going to create it? That's things they're going to look at. Equipment, inventory, once again, this could come back to access restriction. How do you do that? What's the UI for equipment? What's the UI for inventory? What does that interface looks like? They're going to work on identities. So there's the idea of a destiny system, and we've heard the Soulbound Studio talk about this destiny system. What is the destiny system? How does that interact with things? Well, if you want to have a destiny, you need to have an identity. You need to be unique. You need to be something or someone. You need to be something or someone that has the potential to interact in different ways. Interact in different ways, and to do those things, to say, hey, I am Joe Schmo of the town Schmosville, and if you come to my town, then everybody will know Joe Schmo. You cannot spread your name, you cannot gain renown without having some sort of unique identity that NPCs or other player characters can discuss, talk about, recognize in some way, shape, or form. And that plays into the knowledge and the gossip system. Knowledge, what does knowledge mean? Is that recipes? Is that skills? Is that ability? Does that work with the crafting system? How do those two systems interact? And what does that mean? And gossip works with identities. I talked about Joe Schmo, the big fat blow, and now suddenly his title has changed, or his name has changed, or the way that NPCs react to him have changed. And what does that look like? How do they do that? How do you go out and quest and perform tasks for the common good or the common evil? And how does that change the gossip, your identity, your information? And then of course they're gonna really tie down a lot of the lifestyle mechanics. We already know the intentions behind the lifestyle, or sorry, life cycle, the intention behind the life cycle system. How long? About a year, more or less, depending on the soul lost. The idea being, hey, in your lifestyle cycle, one life cycle that you pay for gives you a year of play, a year to make a difference, a year to burn it quick and go out there and fight the world, or stay inside and live to be an old man. The idea stays sound. This idea stays true. What do you do? How do you see it? How does that lifestyle play into that? Life cycle play into that? If you get old and gray, can you perform at the Coliseum? What do those mechanics look like? Locomotion and physics, that's pretty basic, just designer text there. How does physics work inside a game? That all has to be defined. It all has to be decided. It all has to be programmed inside there. NPC interaction, once again, that can go into the dynamic environments. That can go into the idea of contracts. That can go into the artificial intelligence. How do we intend for NPCs to be interacted with? What type of role do they play? Procedural story engine, that Soulbound Studios engine, that idea of a destiny, that idea of potential inside your character. They've got to tie a lot of those previously mentioned lines together. Reputation and fame. Reputation and fame comes right after identities. You have an identity, you can gain reputation and fame. Skills. Once we've defined crafting, once we've defined some of these things, combat, contracts, even life cycle, now we can start playing those together into skills. How do you track that? What's the UI look like? Survival mechanics sounds just like it's a survival MMO. You need to eat, you need to drink, you need to rest. What are the variables that change with that? And then of course world interaction, which is a kind way of saying everything that we've talked about previously, but if we were going to remove everything and put it as one word, it would be world interaction. So it sounds like they've got a lot of the server work done. It sounds like they've got their iterative base ready, so they can start jumping into developing more and more and more and more and more. And now we're gonna jump. We're gonna get there. We're gonna go. So they've released some pictures, some videos, some forums. Check out the information that's in the state of Elyria. Check out the GIFs and models that they've released onto the media site there. Check out the Discords, Chronicles of Elyria Discord, and see, hey, these are the media files we have. Once again, pre-Elyria content here, not the graphics that you're going to see at the end game, but I'm not going to lie, I love the art style, even at the set, saying, hey, this is what we've got going, this is the low poly resolution that we're going to be working with, and this is what we can expect. This is what we can see. So yeah, no, it's really what we'll, and here once again, so semi-arid desert, same thing, low poly, but we can see the scale. We can see the idea of clouds there. You can see the sun and the shadows, the different um, aspects of the game that have the potential to enrich the environment. How do you throw animals in here? How do you throw resources in here? How would one of the weird interact with this environment? We can ask those questions. We can see those things. So this is the idea of combat. He's got a bow. Here's a little bit of a UI here. How do you aim it correctly? How do you not aim it correctly? I hate the idea of games where I can sit there and I can aim down sights and I will hit that headshot every single time. There's a degree of skill here, and you can see it, that little waver, that little movement, that little bit of this. I didn't see any arrow drop here. I see the idea of as you draw back, the reticle changes. It goes from down low to up high. He moves it over. He shoots the arrow. I don't. Once again, I didn't know about drop, but you see some of the UI elements. You see some of those features, those bits there. Going into a tavern, so opening a door, interacting with the world, seeing the things. You can see the low poly graphics movements on the fire. So opens the door, and you can see there's a fire moving. There's some very basic object logic inside the world. What does that look like? What does that do? How do you interact with things? How does that work? So idea of gravity here, so they've got this running pig, and I believe it started with them dropping the pig as an object into the world. Maybe this is just to explain, just to see, hey, oh, there he goes, jumping and falling. I see, jumping and falling. Anyway, so you can kind of get it from the perspective of the pig. You can move around. This is what it feels like. This is what it looks like. And it's incredible. This image right here is really a testament to the work that they've done so far. Because if you're too responsive in a video game like this, it doesn't feel natural. If you're not responsive enough, it feels laggy. So being able to have a graphic such that you've got an object, it's moving around, and you can track that as an individual. You can see that there's development there. There's potential there. There's something that could be a really good system. My hands aren't on the keyboard. I'm not moving that pig around, so I don't know how responsive it is. But and then he jumps and he falls. You can see the idea of gravity and of those physics systems and how they work. So what's next? So just as they said, they're going into the AI, the NPC interactions, the lines that we were talking about earlier, the things that were on that list, access restriction, locomotion and physics, life cycle, those sort of things. Well, here's a little bit into this idea. Imagine you've got an identity, and your identity is Steve. Steve's a great guy. We really like Steve. He's always really nice to this barkeep. He comes there, he drinks everything that he made the day, and the barkeep's really happy because he's making a lot of money off of Steve. So there's a happy barkeep right there. So the idea that you can be recognized by your identity and you can have a NPC interact with you in a beneficial or a hostile way, that's the beginning of those mechanics. Is it perfect? No, of course not, but it shows that we're moving in the right direction. That's a really unique hand motion. That's a really unique body motion. Is there going to be more options available? Are there going to be more things? Maybe he likes you, Steve, but you just slept with his wife and he knows it. Then he maybe looks something like this. He's disappointed in you. Yeah, he doesn't want to talk to you. Get away from here. Poor Marie. Marie probably. Anyway, so, they're saying about 40% of the feature work remaining in 5.0 before they release 5.0 in a couple of months. They don't have an exact date, but it not necessarily be the first opportunity for players to play into the world of Elyria. I mean, you got to recognize right now that the world that they're talking about right now, that's the studio has access to that. Friends and families of the studio, that's the release level they're at right now. Friends and family. They're interacting with things. They're building things. Once again, we see the torch up in the side, the piece up here. There's some dynamic effects there. But yeah, so they go on, and that's where we're at. That's what we're feeling. That's what they've released us in terms of images inside this this news article, and they've said, okay, they really did divide it into two teams: the game team and the outreach team. The game team, of course, is the game, the development, the technical um, development, coding of the objects, the meshes, everything that goes on inside that game. And then you've got the outreach team and the people who've worked on things like the Lost Vault, or the um, map selection, or now domain and settlement selection. And they're talking about, how do you manage that, two teams and resources. And if they threw everybody on the game, they could get things done faster, but then we wouldn't hear as much. And they threw everybody on the things for the community, having jousting tournaments, doing things like that, again, making those resources or events for people. What would that look like? Why would that matter? So they go into talking about what that makes in the coming weeks. So reward people with influence, store credit for the following. And if you're a subject matter expert, if you've done YouTube videos, if you've worked on the wiki, if you've had useful and meaningful conversations on the forums with the developers saying, hey, this is something I really feel is important, this is something that my community around me feels is important, this is something that the COE community as a whole thinks is important, and you can go out there and you can say, hey, this is something that we're discussing, and they're kicking back a little bit of influence and store credit for you. They're working on title transfers. They're working on title trade-ins. You bought a count. You bought a second count. Now you want to be a 2-count package. Well, they'll count your days as a 2-count, because pretty soon they're going to merge those two together or transfer them, or you'll be able to do those things that they've talked about the last State of Elyria, and be able to go through and really interact so that your package as a supporter is unique and you're getting what you're expecting out of it, meeting those expectations, or meeting the ability that they have to meet your expectation, finding the ability they have to meet your expectations. So, now this is the big selection, the big announcement, the thing that we've all been waiting for. We've been listening to, if you're waiting there, you've been listening to me ramble for 30 minutes to get to the domain and settlement selection. Boom. Begins first part of April. Soon, TM. Of course, they've been intentionally vague. They don't want to set a hard date and miss a hard date. I told my significant other, my wife, I said I'm going to be home at 3 o'clock one evening, and I was home at 4:15. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, but there was some disappointment there because, hey, surprise party. You're an hour and a half late, and everybody's been sitting on their toes waiting for you. Whoops, sorry. So they've been leaving it vague, but first part of April, we've got a time, we've got a day. It's the 20th right now, and so we should expect sometime in the next few weeks. 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, who knows? First part of April, domain and settlement selection. And we've seen, if you listen to the communities you're a part of, we've seen some of the early shiftings of this. Kings being contacted, being called into court. Dukes being contacted, being called into court. The SBS sent out a number of carrier pigeons, electronic carrier pigeons, I'm sure, but sent out a number of carrier pigeons, and I'm sure they'll arrive any minute now to get things ready for that domain and settlement selection that begins in the first part of April. So they're putting out this expectation that oh, I'm just an Illyrian, and what does domain and settlement selection mean to me, because I don't know anything or do anything or whatever. So everybody has a role. They have a feeling for this land rush, this idea of, I need to know where I'm going to be. I need to know what I want to do. The community that I'm a part of, where are they going to be located? How much is the unknown? How much is that dark blackness that we reach into and we go forward without our knowledge? And that's what they're getting rid of, with this domain and settlement selection. You'll know you're in a mainly Harathi settlement, or so, at least in my case. This event, players with a bloodline package or higher have an opportunity to purchase an unclaimed settlement or domain directly from domain and settlement selection at a discounted price. Blah, 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 blah. So we're going to start selecting towns. We're going to start selecting counties. We're going to start selecting duchies, and we're going to get locked into kingdoms and locked into areas. and really, see that drama. And oh, there's going to be drama, let me tell you. When we talk about domain and settlement selection, I have XIP, you have XIP plus 5 million. You pick before me, so don't pick the one that I was looking at, because that would make me sad. But if you do, well, we're going to have to kick somebody else out of their intended spot. We're going to have to move those things around. How much of that will occur, I'm not sure, but I'm sure there's people out there, the internet is dark and full of trolls, who know that somebody else wants something, and maybe they select it. Why? Not because they want it, but just because they know you do. So that'll be interesting. That'll be fun. That'll be exciting to manage those expectations and react to those changes inside the environment. Upcoming public Q&A, March 27th at 1 p.m., 7 days from now. They're going to be talking about domain and settlement selection. Things you don't want to miss. What is that going to look like? What's the UI going to look like? Maybe they show us. Probably not, but maybe they show us. They're going to do some recap, and they're going to be talking about the state of Elyria. They're going to be talking about the things that have been popping up because the forums have been blowing up recently. We're getting ready for the alpha push. We're getting ready for being able to bug the game out, to not bug the game out, to make things better, to make things worse, to change things, or to help the studio develop this title that they're excited for, that we're excited for. And you wouldn't want to miss that. So if you're available on March 27th, jump in and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm seeing, and this is what I'm going to be pushing for with my quote unquote political power in the game. So yeah, it's an exciting year, 2019. There's a lot of really big things that are supposed to come out in 2019, and yeah, just like the picture shows, clouds are a little, or the sky's a little cloudy, but that just means there's electricity, there's power up there, there's energy, there's things that are going to happen. And so when those lightning strikes occur, let's hope that they hit us the right way and that they're exciting us for changes to come. So that's domain and settlement selection. That's the things that they're working on. That's what this whole thing is coming out for. And we really hope that the efforts of Soulbound Studios in this matter, the efforts to develop this game how we like it, or how we hope we like it, how that turns out and how that makes it more engaging to you and me as future players. We're going to keep our ear down here. We're going to be listening in to what we can from Soulbound Studios information releases. We're going to be getting excited about domain and settlement selection, the upcoming Alpha 1 release, so that we can start hashing out those mechanics, doing those things, feeling those feels, feeling those frustrations if there are some, and making them better, making them good, interacting with that world. So expect some great things. Once again, this has been Aspissus in the Ancient Grove. We've been talking about the state of Elyria. We went through everything that they've discussed at this point. Things that are near and dear to all of our hearts as contributors, as people who are waiting for the release of this title. And as we learn more, we'll let you know more. If you liked the format we did here, the review of the state of Elyria, let me know. Send us give us a likes, a thumbs up if you're watching this on YouTube, or follow us on Twitch to see you next time we stream live, and we'll get back to you. So once again, this has been Aspissus. You've been here with me in the Ancient Grove, and till next time. Bye bye, folks.